welcome back to Desperate Living. Now it's time for another of our kind of random digs through things from my collection of unnecessary tat or vital tat. Depends how you look at it, I suppose. I tend to go with the latter. I almost said the former then. It was probably a bit of a Freudian slip. But today I thought we'd have a look at soundtrack records. But with a twist. Not 12-inch albums, and not CDs, but rather 7-inch singles or 7-inch EPs, depending on what we're looking at. I've got a handful of these. They're not the primary thing that I would like to collect, but as you may or may not be able to see behind me, depending on the camera angle, there's a bunch of 7 inches there, and certainly movie soundtrack stuff is always fun when you come across it. Normally when you come across it these days, it tends to be, as you might expect, the very mainstream, dreadful stuff. Not all of it even dreadful, but you know, the kind of mainstream movie. Trying to think of a few examples here. For some reason, Flame Trees of Thika keeps coming into my mind, but you know, stuff of that ilk. They're very popular things that, you know, perhaps were hits, Ghostbusters, and so on and so forth. I'm going to look at a few slightly more esoteric ones, beginning with a very esoteric one. I'm going to take these out of the plastic because I have no idea how shiny they'll be. This is shiny anyway. Alias, Smith & Jones and The Virginian, which the more astute of you will realise is not the original soundtracks. This is the always reliable Geoff Love and his orchestra. This time recording for Music for Pleasure. And this is aimed at kids, as you can see by the fact it's telling you to colour in the drawing on the back, which I haven't done. You know, typical kind of Geoff Lovey stuff. Is this it may well be a Tom Chantrell cover. Wouldn't like to say that for sure. Does look like yeah, that does look rather more like David Soul. Maybe this kind of came out around 1975 or something. Who knows? You know, I used to play the Alias, Smith & Jones theme quite a lot. The Virginian, a bit less, to be quite frank. But as with a lot of the Geoff Love stuff, it's a good facsimile. Rather more interesting, Black Emanuelle. Like a lot of European soundtrack covers, this is basically the same thing on either side of the record. A topless shot of Laura Gemser. Emanuelle's theme, not actually Emanuelle's theme, of course, Black Emanuelle's theme, which is a slightly different piece of music. This is on Decca. Like a lot of European stuff, it's got the big hole for that you would put on a jukebox or European record player. So you've got the original theme on one side, and on the other side a performance by Bulldog, that household name. So that's a lot of the Euro erotic themes, certainly the Black Emanuelle, or just regular Emanuelles as they quickly became, were released on 7-inch, and as you can imagine, they're all quite collectible these days. Another black film, but of a very different kind. Black Orpheus, Orfeu Negro, as this particular edition from France would call it. This is a 4-track EP. You can see it's again got the big hole, it's got the adapter in there. This hails from 1959, and I've not played this for a while, but as I recall, it's pretty good. I've never actually seen Black Orpheus, to my shame. This is a fine little soundtrack. I mean, these EPs obviously stood somewhere between a single and an LP. It's kind of a shame that the EP sort of disappeared. But then, you know, everything moved to CD anyway, so it doesn't really matter, does it? A personal favourite now. Jeanette's Porque from the film Cria, Cuervos, a Spanish film. As you can see, the sleeve is in need of a little bit of repair, but it's in generally good condition. It plays well, and you know, this is one that I have played numerous times. So this is from the 1976 Spanish film, and is one of those tracks that is unusual in the fact that it's actually a part of the movie narrative. The child character who we see on the cover here plays this record quite a bit, and why not? It's a fantastic tune in what is otherwise a very bleak and somewhat depressing, admittedly very good, but not fun movie. Jeanette is an interesting kind of Europop character who is certainly worthy of more exploration. I'm not sure if there's any interest out there in kind of biography videos about strange Europop characters. If there is, you know what to do. Let me know in the comments. Next we have a Disney double. On one side, Davy Crockett, and on the other side, The Ballad of Robin Hood, both from Disney Productions, of course. Davy Crockett and Robin Hood, both Disney shows. This actually hails from 1971, although the, the programs were considerably older than that. But there's quite a few of these Disney double bills knocking around. They're not especially rare. Quite often see them being sold in job lots of kids' records. But you know, they're good fun, good value for money. And you know, if you like this kind of strident, excited TV theme tune, then you know, these are very much for you. This is a great deal more recent, in fact from the last couple of years, and I haven't even taken this out of the shrink wrap. Not going to do it now. It's the Severin release of the music from the Female Bunch, which came as part of the grand package of stuff that you could get with the Al Adamson box set. So yeah, a modern day vinyl collector's item rather than anything vintage. But at the same time, you know, a lot of fun and, you know, well worth having.
lonely people lost on a desert plain. It's hot and dusty, there's no chance of rain. Each one is searching for something in the sun. Each one is lonely, each has to run.
Similarly, we have the vinyl disc that came with Steve Thrower's Jess Franco book, Murderous Passions, and it's a nice red vinyl. Let's get that out. Red vinyl disc, 3 tracks from Franco's movies, and as you can imagine, if you know Franco's stuff, I mean, Franco's movies, or the music from Franco's movies, effectively kicked off that whole kind of retro lounge soundtrack craze of the 1990s, and this is certainly up there with that kind of stuff. So this is music from The Perverse Countess and The Intimate Story of a Nymphomaniac, both from the early 70s, and great stuff. We've actually got 2 of these because we have 2 copies of the book. Let's not go into why. Here's a real classic that I picked up in my youth. Hammer House of Horror, the theme tune to the TV show from 1980 on Chips Records, composed by Roger Webb, and the B-side is the theme tune from the Thames TV show Cover, which you probably never heard of. Wasn't something that lasted long, but obviously they needed a B-side, and ideally by the same musician, by the same composer. So there we go. It's Chips was an odd label with equally odd logo. It looks like a children's record label, but it wasn't. It was, I believe, just devoted to soundtracks. But yeah, if you are aware of the theme tune to Hammer House of Horror, you'll know how great it was. One of the best things about that series. So pleased to have that released, and so pleased to have bought this at the time. Now here's a curio. It's a Flexi-Disc. There you can see. I'm not sure why they never called them wobbly discs, but there you go. And it's The Inquisition by Mel Brooks from The History of the World Part 1. And this came with the book that was published alongside the release of the film. It was kind of a bit like the Monty Python books that came with their movies. So a photo-based. It's not the screenplay, but it's got all the dialogue and then the photos. You know what I mean. Obviously, I pulled this out to play. This is arguably the only really good thing about that particular film. The song, not the Flexi-Disc. And so I was keen to have this to play, which I did a lot. And unlike a lot of Flexi-Discs, it actually did play quite well. I have no idea what it would do now. I think I still have the book, though I have no idea where it is. presumably on one of these shelves behind me. I'll have to try and dig it out. If I do, maybe it's time to reunite them. Here's another rarity that's in several layers of packaging. Let's see if I can get this out. Oh. No, it's only in 2 layers of packaging. It just looked like several, because that doesn't quite fit, I suppose. Anyway, it's the Nekromantik picture disc, the original from the time that the film was released, sent over to me along with a lot of other Nekromantik merch, like the comic book and various postcards and stickers and God knows what else, by and the poster by Jörg Buttgereit himself. So this is effectively the entire soundtrack of the film, I believe. The movie didn't have enough music to stretch to a 12-inch disc. Music here by John Boy Walton, Herman Kopp and Daktari Lorenz. It's a beautiful little thing. Thought so when I got it and still think so now. Very nice indeed. Obviously these days you can get the Nekromantik soundtrack together with other Jörg Buttgereit soundtracks on vinyl, and they've been out on CD as well, I believe, for whopping collector's prices, though I imagine that the collector's price for this particular single is probably slightly more whopping. Come to another pairing of tunes here. The New Avengers and The Professionals. A curio this, it's taken from the album which features music from The Avengers, The New Avengers and The Professionals, all by Laurie Johnson, which I guess came out around, what year do we have on here? Yeah, 1980, and you might have thought that given that The Professionals was the more recent show and the show that was still on TV at the time, that that would be the A-side, but seemingly not, looking at the sleeve design. Although it is the A-side on the disc. But I think because of the way that sleeves were designed in those days, everywhere that this was displayed, this was out front and this was out back. Not that I care, because I was a big fan of the New Avengers at that point and loved its theme tune. Still think it's a great theme tune. Not so sure it's a great show anymore. So I was very happy to get this, and then later on picked up the album when we inevitably go through my collection of soundtrack LPs. You can have a look at it there. Next, a soundtrack, or maybe a theme tune, that we've seen a few releases of in recent years, although it's taken a long time to actually come out officially, and this is Psycho, of course. This is a nicely packaged edition. Still has the press release in it. And a postcard. There you go, nice little extra. And this basically consists of 2 tracks, which effectively covers most of the Psycho soundtrack, has to be said, and are very short. If you can see, I'm not sure if you can see just how short they are. and particularly the murder theme. So this is on the Stylatone label and comes in glorious mono, and in truth is something of a collector's item rather than something you'll want to play a lot. I mean, I can't imagine many people shelling out the kind of money you would have to shell out for a vinyl record these days for these two tracks. However, it's very nicely packaged, and you know, if you're a fan of Psycho, a fan of Hitchcock, a fan of Bernard Herrmann, then this is certainly something that is well worth picking up. Let's go back to Jörg Buttgereit now with the Todesking, another soundtrack that he sent over, and this one not on picture disc but on rather nice transparent red vinyl. And again, it's an EP consisting of 6 tracks, which is pretty much the whole of the film's soundtrack. Very nicely put together. These were, I'm not sure if these were ever commercial items at the time or whether they were just promotional items, but either way, I mean, very nice, and something that is well worth picking up for any fans of Buttgereit or German horror or kind of weird electronica, to be quite honest. I mean, the soundtracks to both the Todesking and Nekromantik are kind of extraordinary pieces of work, and I think even as the films have been rediscovered and reissued, the scores just haven't been appreciated for just how powerful and unsettling they were. So if you get a chance to pick up the more available editions of the Buttgereit soundtracks, absolutely go for it. Now here's something that kind of is and kind of isn't a movie soundtrack. It's quite tightly in there. Obviously an infamous record. Let's cover up Jane Birkin's boobs for the sake of the censors. T'aime Moi Non Plus. Then same Serge Gainsbourg, Jane Birkin classic track, infamous track. This edition, of course, interesting because it's obviously tied to the film version. It's not the film version of the record. I'm not sure it's a direct adaptation, but the film that Serge Gainsbourg made that has the same title as the song. And this is a nice UK edition, even though both the record and the film were banned by different authorities in the UK. But the record was only obviously banned from airplay, which just made it more popular. The film was banned by the British Board of Film Censors, as they were more accurately known back then. So I'm not quite sure what this edition was cashing in on, but I'm glad it exists. Now we've got a few things that maybe skirt the edge of being soundtracks. but I'm not quite sure what else we put them into, other than kind of random spoken word, children's records, oddball things that I don't have enough of to make their own video, so here they are. First of all, we've got Huckleberry Hound telling stories of Uncle Remus. Well, you know, he probably wouldn't get away with that today, but back in 1965 when this came out, then it was all fine. Obviously this is a children's record that, for some bizarre reason, has 4 tracks, one of which is split between side 1 and side 2 rather than just having the entire track on one side and then the other 2 tracks on the other side. Who am I to question it? It's one of those curious children's covers of the time that isn't quite right. It's a fairly good representation of Huckleberry Hound, but the rest of it just feels odd. You know, it's sort of fun. Yeah, I don't know really what to make of it, to be honest. It's a curio. If you've heard Huckleberry Hound, then you know that he has, you know, quite a distinctive voice. Maybe not one suited to telling stories, but there you go. Add on the back here for another couple of Hanna-Barbera releases, the Flintstones and Hansel and Gretel. One of these doesn't seem to really fit into the Hanna-Barbera oeuvre, so I'm not quite sure what they were thinking there, or indeed how many of these things eventually came out. You would imagine that they would sell like hotcakes, but maybe not. Equally, you would imagine that what people really wanted from Hanna-Barbera records were the fantastic theme tunes, but it would take a very long time for those to emerge. Thankfully, I have the CD of those. I'm sure we'll have a look at that at some later point. Definitely not for children is the bluntly titled Murder, which is actually a 2-disc set. This is a pair of discs that we'll just have a look at one of them, which again come on coloured vinyl, a kind of nicely muddy red. I suppose that's, guess it's meant to be blood red. It seems fairly effective as that. And this is a collection of spoken word recordings, and the reason I would say it kind of fits into to the idea of a soundtrack is that they all come from the TV documentary Murder, No Apparent Motive. Not, has to be said officially. This is not a legal soundtrack in that sense. All this stuff has just been lifted and used, and there's a suitable drone noise on the back of it. But this is the kind of thing that was hugely popular in the nihilistic 90s. Now would be deeply frowned on, I imagine. I have to say that although I actually had no connection to the production of these, I did import a large number of them to sell, and yeah, they sold like hotcakes. Who are the murderers on here? It's Ed Kemper. If you've seen Murder, No Apparent Motive, you know that Ed Kemper's monologues on there are truly something. Ted Bundy, Henry Lee Lucas, and Kenneth Bianchi. So that's it for today. A collection of generally unconnected 7-inches, movie, TV, soundtracks that hopefully you've enjoyed looking at, and copyright allowing, hopefully we've given you a couple of snippets from. along the way. Let us know what your favourite soundtrack 7 inches are in the comments. And if you enjoy looking through collections of books, records, magazines, toys, whatever, then you should definitely subscribe to Desperate Living, where we do this kind of thing on a regular basis. And don't forget, if you've enjoyed this video, then hit that like button. Every like counts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.